after a rough week 1 game for UCF, they are looking to really turn some heads against North Carolina A&T. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Charge On. As always, I am your host, Sean Green. As always, we are sponsored by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, unfortunately, as of right now, you cannot go bet on this game. I would wonder why. I'm really trying to put my finger on it, why you can't bet on this game. But if you want to bet on any other college football game this week, go to FanDuel. They've got great lines. The best lines anywhere is going to be on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Make sure you keep checking the app. Maybe they'll add the UCF line this week at some point. But I'm constantly checking. Use FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I had the under last week. Nick also had the under. I think that worked out nice for us. And we will kind of talk about this week. But use FanDuel, proud sponsors of the Charge On podcast. Last week was interesting. It was long. It was a long night. I think Nick can attest to that. Nick got home at, I think, 2:50 in the morning on Friday. I didn't go to bed till 4. And I think we walked away from the game being optimistic, but also having a lot of questions and having a lot of, okay, the best case scenario was we open the season how we'd have it, where it's Jack State, it's this week against North Carolina A&T, and then you get a bye week. Because I think there's a lot that they're going to be able to figure out in the next couple of weeks, but we're going to talk about this week 2 matchup that I think, is it interesting? No. I'm going to be honest with you guys. It's not interesting for the actual opponent, but the storylines that we are kind of formulating around this UCF team are very interesting. But Nick Geddes joins me as always. Nick, interesting week 1, all around college football, but definitely for UCF.
Yeah, I would probably tell you there were some more interesting games to watch this weekend than what UCF and Jacksonville State put out there on Thursday. That was one of the games of all time. It was one of the games, and honestly, first half into the third quarter, I was sitting up there in the press box, and I think we were all kind of saying it amongst ourselves. This is one of the worst football games we've ever watched. I don't think that's a stretch to say. It was in that territory, and I had a feeling Jack State was going to be a little bit of a tricky test for UCF, and I didn't know what to expect. I don't think anybody did. That's why I was so conservative with my score prediction, which ended up being not too far off, to be honest with you. I think I said 24-10. It was 17-10. But, the last thing you wanted to do was have to grind out a victory like they did and take it all the way up to the final minute of the game. And if not for Jaden Williams making what was the play of the game on the final defensive drive, or the penultimate defensive drive, rather, for UCF, who knows how that game goes. But they made the play. They did not play well at all. I would probably say that you can almost split it up in defensively and offensively throughout that game, at least on offense. D+, C- maybe. Probably, I'd like to think that's what they played that night. And they were able to get that win and move on. So now we turn our attention North Carolina A&T. I want to think going into this is a game where you name your score and you keep it moving. So hopefully that's what happens this week. There's a lot of things that they need to clean up, and I was listening to Scott Frost on the drive home, and he sort of acknowledged that as well. I think it was the 300th win in the program's history and everything, and but obviously that's not what he wanted to talk about. He wanted to talk about the things they did wrong, and there were many of those things. So a lot of room for improvement, and that's why the opponent this week is perfect, and of course the bye week coming after that.
And I don't think it gets lost on you. And I think Alex Grinch talked about it on Tuesday about how at the end of the day, you're going to take a win. A win is a win, and you're going to take it. But you also have to understand that you need to clean up the mistakes. He even said the defense, he thought the effort was good, but not great. And I think that's where you kind of can look. And listen, we both said after the game, I think we walked out of the stadium and we really didn't know what to make of it, because the last 7 minutes were really good. The last 7 minutes, if that was the UCF team that you got throughout the game, you're having a different mindset leaving Acrisure Bounce House. You're like, okay, that was better than we even thought. Because let's be real here, we were going in with very low expectations, but with the assumption that this is a powerful football team. You're going to be able to go in and beat Jack State, a team that is also going to the same things you are. With that being said, though, I think when you go back and look, and Scott Frost mentioned it, Nick, there were a lot of mental errors that this UCF team caused. There was a touchdown, a long run touchdown that got called back for a holding. That would have been 7 points. There was on the 1 yard line a false start that probably would have been 7 points. So when you add those things up, that kind of gets you thinking that could have been a 30-point game for UCF. But on the scoreboard, it looks like it's 17, and you made all the mistakes to cause that.
Yeah, I mean, that they shot themselves in the foot on too many occasions and allowed Jacksonville State to sort of, hang around in that football game. And it's interesting because when I look back at that night and some of the plays that were made, and you look at some of the box score stuff, and I was looking at the PFF stuff as well, there were a lot of individual performances that I actually really liked. It's a bizarre thing. I thought there was actually some really encouraging individual performances, mainly on the defense, but on offense as well. I talked about in the pregame, trying to have more consistency in your wide receiver room and getting more guys involved. Well, you had 4 or 5 guys who all had, 3 catches or whatnot. And, I thought Dylan Wade, obviously he had the touchdown, which was a great design. That was probably Scott Frost's best call of the night up until the game-winning play where Taven Jackson finds DJ Black for the touchdown. So there were some overall positives from individual play, but as a whole, it just was not up to the standard that you wanted to see. But it is week 1. It's a football team that's integrating nearly 70 new players, and they always say week 1, week 2, that time frame right there is when you see the most improvement in your football team. And again, Jacksonville State was an opponent that could, be a little tricky for you to deal with in week 1 with those variables. North Carolina A&T, I'm telling you, it's just not going to be that way. It's just not. In all respect to them, this should be a game that UCF is able to find a rhythm, and kind of how they did in the fourth quarter. I think if they can carry that over, I think they found something there in that fourth quarter offensively. It seems like things opened up a little bit. I don't think they ran the ball as strong as I thought they would. Miles, I think early on looked really sharp, had some good runs. It seemed like the holes kind of closed up as the game went on. And then when Taven got in there, I thought he was pressing early, but he grew into that football game. And like I said, they found a rhythm. And I know we're going to get here, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks here in a second, but personally, that's something that I would like to see them build on into this game.
Yeah, let's talk quarterbacks. I do want to mention, I think it'll get lost on UCF fans because it's a season, we keep moving. But this is why having the schedule shake up this way, especially this year with everything that's gone on, is so massive for UCF because they needed these first 2 games like this. They needed a Jack State and they need a North Carolina A&T. You don't want to be like a North Carolina Tar Heel team that had to go face TCU in your first game and show how bad of a team you are. Now, granted, there's improvement. There's improvement throughout a season. I think UCF needs these first 3 weeks, especially the bye week, to really build up that confidence and really build and mold into the team they are. So I think that's where you could be grateful as a UCF fan. Yes, that game was really bad. It's probably one of the worst football games. I said on the pod, it's one of the worst football games I've ever watched. But I think with all the circumstances around it and the last 7 minutes on both offense and defense, you look at it as there are signs that this team could be good. But the majority of the game was so bad. But it's okay. It's expected. You just can't be that bad moving forward. Let's talk about quarterbacks. Scott Frost, obviously, I was at the presser on Monday. We all said there's no way he announces a starter. There's just 0% chance he announces. Here's what I'm going to tell fans, and I want to get your take, Nick. I think me and you probably think very similarly. I think every fan saw, okay, Taven should be the guy. There are some things that we don't know or that fans don't know as to why Taven was not the starter. Coaches have kind of alluded to it. Steve Cooper kind of alluded to it that he's got a different, I forgot the exact words he used, but basically his mindset has shifted. And it's things that we've been hearing for months now, that maybe there wasn't as much, care or buy-in as maybe the coaches would have liked to see. And I think the minute Taven got announced as quarterback 2, they said he had the best week of practice, the game week. And he goes in the game and really shined in the role. So I think fans are just expecting Taven Jackson is going to be walking out there quarterback 1. We do not have an update on Cam Fancher. We have no idea if he's healthy. I'm going to assume, guys, and I know a lot of people are not going to be happy with this. If Cam Fancher is healthy, he will be the quarterback trotting out there for UCF at quarterback 1. Because the saying that you always say is you cannot lose your job because of an injury. A quarterback should not lose a job because of an injury. Now, with that being said, he did play a couple series, and those series were not good. But what I will say that, Nick, is me and you were right. Mostly me. The first game, Cam Fancher was announced as the starter. But there's some rumblings that Taven Jackson was going to play in that football game. I've heard some rumblings that Taven Jackson was most likely going to play. So, we were right. The quarterback competition was not settled before the first game. This quarterback competition is going into the bye week. That's what's going to happen. That's what it's gotten to. They're not going to say that. Scott Frost isn't going to say the quarterback competition's continued, because it's not. The quarterback competition has continued. Cam started. He got hurt, unfortunately, but Taven Jackson was going to enter that football game at some point or one point or another. And unfortunately, you're not going to learn much in this game, and we're going to get to it. But Nick, I think this is just quarterback competition continuing. And if Taven plays like he did in the last game, UCF fans should not be worried at all. But I do think if Cam Fancher is healthy, Cam Fancher will be starting for UCF this week. I have no inside intel on that. I'm just assuming if he is healthy, he will play. Start. Your turn.
I'm not a fan. I was willing to give the Cam Fancher experience a chance, and I feel bad throwing him away after a half of football, but
not even a half. 20
sure.
minutes.
I mean, we have eyes.
Yeah.
We saw it. You know, we had a great view of it too up top. I mean, what did he do to inspire any sort of confidence?
He ran it good.
I mean, I couldn't find it, and yeah, he ran it good. But I mean, the runs he had. I mean, I don't mean to take it away from him, but they were. I mean, most quarterbacks can do that. I'm just saying, it wasn't like anything was designed for Cam there. But I don't know, man. I felt like there were plays to be made in that football game when Cam was in there in the passing game. I felt like there were plays to be made. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep.
And he just didn't make them. Like that's part of the problem here. When you talk about how UCF just didn't execute and the fact that they were in that game longer, early in that game there were chances to make plays. I mean, the first play of the game, I don't want to bang them too much on that, but you know they aired it out. And listen, you want to see him make that throw, absolutely. And there were a couple other throws where you want to see him make those. And the play that he got hurt on, you know, I don't know if it was a missed assignment or whatever. They didn't pick up the block, but all I know is Cam Fancher was just standing still there, and it was, you know, it wasn't on his blind side. It was kind of right. It was on his near side. So, and he was just standing there flat-footed and got crushed, and that's unfortunate. And, you know, I would hate it, I guess. You know, you had this competition all off season long, and because of an injury, all of a sudden, you know, you're quarterback too. Like, I know that may sound crappy, but at the end of the day, like, you know, this is can I call it a business? Can I say that? Usually in the NFL, we always say it's a business. Can I say it's a business? I'm going to say it. It's a business. And his injury led Taven Jackson to come in there. And like I said, after a couple errant throws early on, he really settled in. And I thought the offense was running a lot smoother with Taven under center. And him being named quarterback too seems to have ignited something under him. And, you know, it seems like the light bulb has sort of gone off for him. And he responded well to that. And I like that. So I would build off of that. I don't really have any interest in seeing any quarterback competitions at this juncture playing out. But I understand that it seems like it's trending that way, that if Cam's healthy, he's going to start. But that doesn't mean that Taven won't play. It'll just mean that they'll probably keep rotating both of them in and out, and they'll see what happens before they get to the third game. But it's not what I would do. I would just stick with Taven at this point. But is what it is.
Yeah, I would stick with Taven. I think it wasn't necessarily just the mistakes. It was the errant throws from Cam. Now, I don't want to... I want to maybe be a little positive and give Cam a little leeway here in the sense that he looked errant or erratic, but it was early in the game, first game of the year. Some of those throws you kind of expect to happen. At the end of the day, they can't happen.
I mean, we're not talking about an inexperienced we're not talking about an inexperienced quarterback here, though.
But Nick, let's not call it like it is, or let's call it like it is. He was playing in front of an FAU crowd last year and a Marshall crowd the other couple years. Credit to the UCF fans because the bounce house was basically all full. I think there is a little bit of butterflies going into a stadium like that where you've previously played at Marshall and FAU. I think there, compared to Taven played at, he was at Tennessee and Indiana. So I think there's more of a, calm factor compared to I'm not discrediting it. At the end of the day, I think Taven should start. I'm just saying a little bit of butterflies, probably. Power 4 football, but I digress.
Well, forgive me if after what we went through last year, I'm just not jazzed up to see.
Oh, I'm not jazzed. I want to see Taven.
I just want to see Taven play, man.
Yeah. Let's move on from quarterback. We will see what happens on Saturday. Let's talk offensive line really quick because it's been a topic of conversation from UCF fans over the last couple days. And I think a lot of people are nervous about the offensive line, and I give them, I feel like it's fair. As they should. I think Scott Frost had an interesting comment on Monday. I was going to ask about it, but Chris Boyle beat me to it, about the guard play. And I think literally took out guard and Keegan and put in Cam Kinney and who'd he put at a left guard?
Jabari Brooks.
Jabari Brooks.
Yeah, and
it was very strange.
I had it here. Guard and Keegan got just over 50 snaps. Jabari and Cam got around 20. Was the split there? Okay,
so it was very obvious, Nick, who the better line was. I think at the beginning of the game they ran the ball very well. Miles was picking up a lot of yards. They then took Keegan and guard out, and the running game kind of stunk for a good chunk.
I think Jabari and Cam each got a penalty too when they came in.
Yep. Keegan got the penalty on the 1 yard line, so that was the big one. I think Keegan got the big penalty. Cam Kinney had a couple. I think Jabari had one. So no, I think I found it very interesting. Do you have Scott Frost's quote about?
Yeah, I have the full quote, and he was asked about whether the guard rotation will continue. He said, "Yeah, I think so, and we'll go with the guys that are playing the best. But all 4 of those guys are good enough to be on the field. It had really good camps. That's not like quarterback. If you think you can rotate guys in, I think you can rotate guys in and keep guys fresh. We got a couple tackles that I think are deserving a little bit of time too that we'll try to get in sooner or later. But the more we can keep those guys up front rested and fresh, I think the better we'll be."
So let me kind of try and dissect what Scott Frost said there, because when I was in the press conference room, I was hearing him say that. I'm like, what is he talking about? Never in football have I heard a coach say that, yeah, let me keep my starting offensive line fresh by subbing out the 2 starting guards for the 2 backup guards. Again, they're playing North Carolina A&T this week. I think the tackle comment, you're going to see some backup tackles. I think they're all expecting this to be a blowout. You're going to see those guys. Clearly, I don't think by North Carolina, they're still going to be subbing in the backup guards. No. I think there is clearly still some trepidation on who they might want to be the guys. I think they feel very confident that guard and Keegan are the guys, but I think they wanted to get Jabari and Cam some reps and get them in the game to see what it would look like. They didn't sub in the backup tackles. So like Scott Frost saying, oh, these guys are deserving of playing time. They didn't put backup tackles in. They put the backup guards in. So what that tells me is there's still some question marks on that end. I think there was a by far clear better offensive line. And I do think for all the negativity, which granted, I think there needs to be, the offensive line needs to be better from the really back half of the first quarter all the way through the third quarter. It was not pretty. I think the pass blocking was better than the run blocking. I would say that. But I will say in the fourth quarter, it was significantly better. Taven had a bunch of time to throw the football. They weren't really running in the fourth quarter. They were throwing the football. And there was no really point where you felt like the pocket was getting too tight and Taven didn't have enough time. I think there was the one time where Taven threw it to Miles on the left, where it was a good play by Taven. The pocket was closing, and he made the across his body throw to get it to Miles. But I think the offensive line got gradually better in the fourth quarter, where you felt confident that they kind of felt a groove. I hate the fact I do not want to start splitting time of the guards. You really need the offensive line to stay a unit unless an injury happens, especially with all the quarterback questions and all that stuff. How do you feel, Nick? I don't want to start messing with the guards every other series.
Yeah, I think it's probably incredibly difficult to trot out multiple line combinations throughout the flow of a game and there not being an injury or just some guys just like completely unplayable, so you have to yank them out. I didn't get the feeling, that it was an injury. And I didn't get the feeling that it was a case where either Keegan or guard were like just unplayable to the point where you had to pull them out. Clearly, they made that substitution after, I think, 2 drives. So that tells me like this was the plan going in. This is what they wanted to do. I mean, I find it a little unconventional, but it's clear that they were trying to use these 2 games to sort of test some things out before they get on to the season. And I guess, again, the argument for that is you have a completely new football team that have never played with each other whenever, live rounds are going. So you don't know what you don't know, right? And I guess that's what the plan was. But after this game, if it sounds like they're going to do this rotation again, after this game, that needs to be nailed down. We don't need to get into the middle of the season and they still can't figure out what their offensive line combination. Yes, even the starters, when Keegan's in there, even when guard is in there as well, it's not like they played, I wouldn't even say good necessarily. I think they were pretty average as a collective unit throughout the entire night, and they have to be much better because that was Jacksonville State. You're going to see some better fronts as we get into Big 12 play, of course. So that's something that's got to be better. But again, sort of how the quarterback thing is, I don't want to see, rotating quarterbacks, and I don't really want to see rotating offensive lines, but I suppose I understand in this case why they're doing it.
Yeah, I understand it, and I'm okay with it right now. I don't want to see it moving forward. I'm okay with it on Saturday. Like, that's fine. Like, play. Put in Owen Spell there, right tackle.
This is an experimental football game. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
Yeah. I was going to talk about the defense. I don't think we need to. I think we talked enough about the defense. Can I just tell you that my favorite player on the team is Big Horace Lockett. I mean, I think he's a lot of players or a lot of fans' new favorite.
Yeah, big number 13 right in the middle. I mean, he stuck out. You couldn't miss him. You could just see how big he was, even from the vantage point that we had.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm all in on Horace Lockett. Man. All in on the defensive line. I thought the defensive line had a really strong night.
I agree, and even Alex Grinch said we only had couple sacks, we want more. And like I said, I think UCF won the lines of scrimmage, but they didn't dominate it. And I think that's something that they are going to want to do moving forward, and I'm sure they'll do it on Saturday. And Horace Lockett's going to be a big reason why. I think, especially the defensive linemen, like when they subbed out Walker and Jackson and brought in Horace Lockett and Laura. They were both, I think the backups were better than the starters, in my opinion, on Saturday, Thursday. But no, defensively, I think there's still a lot to improve on, but it was good. There's not really much to nitpick. That was just talking a lot about the last game. So let's talk about North Carolina A&T. I'm going to be honest, guys, we're going to keep this pretty brief. Basically, everything we talked about is what we need to see in this game. Because North Carolina A&T, just to give you guys a little bit of context, North Carolina A&T is in the CAA conference. For context, Villanova and New Hampshire are also in that conference. If you go look at the scores from the last couple years, or I think it was last year, we played both New Hampshire and Villanova. that should tell you everything. So I think they were 1-11 last year, this team. They have a new head coach, Sean Gibbs. He was their running back coach. I think he played for North Carolina A&T when he was a player. I think he's going to turn that program around for them. But in terms of score prediction and game, Nick, I think the best thing that we can do is go based off of how did UCF beat New Hampshire and how did they beat Villanova. And I think when you look at the end of this game and when you look at the end and you see the final score, I think that will not necessarily be the test to tell you how good of a team UCF is. Because at the end of the day, UCF beat New Hampshire 52-3. They weren't a very good football team. UCF, I mean. So it doesn't matter necessarily if UCF goes out and beats them 52-3. What it does matter is if they have another performance like last week, where they struggle on offense, it doesn't look very clean, then you can start to say, okay, this team is this team. They might get a little better, but they're not going to beat the best teams. You need to kind of go out and prove just how better you are, no?
Yeah, if this is even a football game by the end of the first quarter, it needs to be pushing the panic button, to be honest with you. But I don't think it's going to get to that point. I think they showed me enough in that fourth quarter. There's a lot to build off of there. Like I said, for as bad as they played in week one, there's no way they could play worse in week two. I think there's a massive drop-off even from Jacksonville State down to North Carolina A&T. And to be honest, there wasn't really much of a difference between UCF and Jacksonville State now, was there, for a large part of that game? So take that with what you will. But I'm not really expecting them to have a lull or anything like that. I think the talent gap here is too wide. The coaching gap here is too wide. I think they're going to be pretty irritated at the way last week went, and they got to be, licking their chops to face an opponent like this and try to correct some of those things that we talked about.
I'm going to give my score prediction. Again, I'm sorry. I will say, we can quickly divulge their previous game. They lost to Tennessee State, 24-21 on a missed field goal. That would have brought it into overtime. Braxton Thomas, Florida kid, went 11 of 13 for 169 yards and a touchdown. I don't think he started the game. I think he was the backup to Champ Long, who was at Maryland. And Braxton Thomas came in and played pretty well. So I think if you're UCF, I think that is something. I think the passing game is actually going to be a lot better than last week. So that's going to be another opportunity to see if these DBs are who we think they are. Again, not the greatest competition, but a quarterback that I think is more serviceable as a passer than last week. They don't really run the ball particularly well, and I don't think either quarterback really does either. They had 41 carries for 133 yards. I think UCF should feast on the defensive line. They're going to be much bigger than this team, and I think they're going to be able to stop the run. Besides that, guys, like we said it last week, this is a game that UCF should feast. UCF should win by a lot. I'm going to go semi, not conservative, but I'm going to go semi, I don't know. I'm going to go 44-10. I'm going to go 44-10. I think this is the game that UCF really needs to put it on offensively and give people some hope that this team, they need to play like the last 7 minutes. If they do, then I think a lot of people are going to be excited for those 2 weeks before North Carolina. But I'd say 44-10.
42-7, get in, get out, stay healthy, go to the bye week. The end.
Sounds good. All right, everybody, what is your score prediction? What do you think? What did you like from last week? What did you not like? What's maybe scaring you a little bit after hearing some of the coaches' comments? And who do you want to be QB1? I think we all know your answer, but drop it down in the comments and tell me why we're wrong. Are we wrong? Is it not a quarterback competition? Is Scott Frost going to start Taven if Cam Fancher is healthy or not? Let us know. And guys, as always, use FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Football, NFL starts tonight. You've got a great matchup. You've got great matchups on Sunday. I'm so pumped. You've got college football. You've got NFL. This is the time to be on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Again, keep checking out the UCF line if it pops up. I'm sure they don't want to put it up because UCF, I don't know how you'd really make a favorite for UCF out of this game. But keep checking FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and a proud sponsor of the Charge On podcast. All right, everybody. As always, please like, subscribe, comment, share. Do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Pre-game show, post-game show. If weather is permitting, we will do the pre-game show. We have a spot on Memory Mall. If weather is fine, we will be out there. We would love you guys to come by. We'll let you guys know what exactly spot on Memory Mall we'll be at. Me and Nick will be live streaming for about 30 minutes to an hour. Come say hi if you're out there. And then we will be doing a post-game show. It's Saturday. The game gets pushed a little bit. Unfortunately for Nick and for myself, we will do a post-game show.
Oh, we're good. Sunday's fair. Sunday's fair game.
Sunday's fine. Sunday's fine.
We're good. If we would have done the show on Thursday, I would have gotten home at like 4. That would.
Yeah, it would have been rough. I would have gotten to bed at like 6. But that's going to do it. Guys, let's see if UCF can go 2-0. I think they will. This has been Charge On, presented by FanDuel. We will see you on Saturday.